Hello everyone, and welcome to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. Today we're unpacking a story that has shaken fandoms across Turkey and beyond, the latest chapter in the tangled timeline of Navruz, Ayça, and Alina. If you appreciate clear, respectful storytelling without the noise, please hit like, subscribe, and consider clicking the join button to support the channel. Thank you. Now let's get into the video. For months, whispers about Navruz's private life have floated around timelines like confetti that never seems to settle. First came the headlines about a breakup with Ayça. Then, just as quickly, came the murmurs of a quiet reconciliation. Fans traced the clues like detectives, a song posted at the same hour, a caption that felt a little too hopeful, an unfollow that turned into a refollow. The narrative everyone wanted to believe was simple: time apart, lessons learned, a soft return. And because it was almost her birthday, the idea of a symbolic reunion felt inevitable. That is why the night of Ayça's birthday hit so hard. Instead of the expected photo, 2 hands, 2 candles, a message about second chances, followers noticed something else on her stories, a single image and a mood that didn't match the optimism the fandom had been building. No names, no direct statement, just a tone that led many to fill in the blanks. The comments turned into a chorus: what happened? Did plans change? Was there a last-minute disappointment? Within an hour, the hashtags about birthday wishes were eclipsed by new threads asking whether the reconciliation had been wishful thinking all along. Family entered the conversation next, as families do when someone they love looks heartbroken online. Reports, unverified but widely repeated, claimed that Ayça's relatives were upset with Alp, not because a relationship ended, but because endings are supposed to be handled with care. Protective parents, siblings, cousins, old friends. They became characters in a story that none of them asked to be in. The nuance here matters. People can feel protective and angry without issuing statements, and the internet can interpret silence as thunder. In the absence of official words, the emotion filled the room. So what, exactly, changed the temperature of that night? This is where the timeline turns controversial. Very soon after the public learned of the breakup, behind-the-scenes content surfaced from a commercial collaboration that put Navruz and Alina in the same frame again, professionally. There were production stills, wardrobe fittings, and a few seconds of a polished brand reel that looked like any other campaign: attractive leads, a clean aesthetic, a story told in 30 seconds. But when you watch an ad through the lens of a recent heartbreak, your eyes see subtext. For some fans, the message wasn't 2 stars doing their jobs. It was: this is the wrong time. It's important to slow down here. There's no evidence that Alina had any role beyond exactly what was visible: a contracted project with a co-star she has worked with before. By all accounts, she arrived, she did the work, she was professional, and she went home. If you know anything about how campaigns are planned, months in advance, with signed contracts and fixed launch windows, you know that the timeline of public feelings and the timeline of brand releases rarely align. Sometimes a post looks insensitive not because someone chose insensitivity, but because the calendar was locked before the personal plot twist. Still, perception is powerful. In the hours after the campaign clip circulated, the fandom fractured into familiar camps. One camp rallied around Ayça, arguing that the optics were unfair. The week a reconciliation rumor peaks is not the week fans want to see a former partner beaming in a crisp commercial. Another camp defended Alp, reminding everyone that work is work and that adult life doesn't pause simply because the internet wants a neat narrative. A third camp stepped in for Alina, insisting she should not be dragged into a breakup she did not cause, does not comment on, and cannot control. And then came the speculation avalanche: screenshots of schedules, whispers about who knew what, and when. A bouquet in a trailer became a theory about hidden messages. A hotel lobby sighting turned into a paragraph about motives. Online, stories can gain detail the way a snowball gains size, by rolling downhill through a crowded square. The risk is obvious: the farther the snowball rolls, the less anyone can see what was there at the start. Responsible coverage means acknowledging the boundaries: we have proximity, not proof, hints, not hard facts. Let's talk about the role of birthdays in celebrity storytelling. Audiences love turning birthdays into milestones. Moments for big gestures and redemption arcs. The fact that hopes were pinned on that date says less about the people involved and more about how fandoms cope with uncertainty. Birthdays feel like plot points. If something beautiful happens, we say it was meant to be. If it doesn't, we say it was a sign. The truth is usually messier. People reschedule. People miscommunicate. People freeze when pressure mounts. None of those possibilities make for juicy headlines, but they're often the most human explanations. Meanwhile, the advertising timeline churned on. A campaign launch doesn't wait for hearts to align. Agencies brief, wardrobe fits, storyboards lock, and media buys go live. Even if you wished for a pause button, there often isn't one. A post can feel like a provocation to a heart in pain while being, in reality, a pre-scheduled deliverable. This isn't a defense of bad timing, it's a reminder that timing isn't always in the talent's hands. And because none of the principals issued a clarifying note, the fanbase was left to debate intent, dangerous territory, because intent is the one thing strangers never see. Where does this leave Ayça? With empathy and noise in equal measure. The empathy is easy to understand. Fans saw the birthday that wasn't, the hope that flickered, the quiet image that said more than words. The noise is harder to manage, strangers assigning meaning to her silence, reporters calling friends for quotes, people building timelines they can't possibly verify. Through all of it, the most humane reading is also the simplest. Someone hoped for something gentle and didn't get it. That doesn't require villains. It requires time. And where does this leave Navruz? With a choice about how, or whether, to speak. Some public figures issue a short note when the temperature rises, kind, clear, and free of subtext. Others let the moment pass, trusting that the next project will shift the conversation. Both strategies have costs. A note can pour gasoline on a fire if it lands wrong. Silence can be read as indifference when it may be protection, for himself, for someone else, or for a brand contract with strict publicity rules. The correct choice is the one that preserves dignity, not the one that pleases an algorithm. And Alina boss? With undeserved crossfire. If there is one consensus that should unite every corner of this conversation, it's that dragging a working partner into someone else's private heartbreak is unfair. She showed up, did the job, and left, full stop. Turning a set into a battleground for a relationship narrative is not only inaccurate, it also sets a dangerous precedent for any actress who dares to work with a leading man the internet has feelings about. The industry demands professionalism. So should we. There are, of course, quieter stories here that never trend. Friends who stand guard at a doorway because they know their friend does not want to cry in front of phones. A sibling who manages incoming calls so a parent won't spiral. A colleague who quietly swaps a shift so someone can avoid an outing that would be photographed. These are the gestures that matter and the ones we rarely see. If you want to know how people are doing, look for who shows up when there are no cameras. So what happens next? 3 plausible paths. 1. A cooling off period with no public comment, the noise dies down, and everyone moves forward with their projects. 2. A brief message, either solo or joint, that draws a boundary and asks for privacy. 3. A reset behind the scenes, where apologies are offered, expectations recalibrated, and the next chapter, together or apart, is chosen quietly. None of these paths need a villain to make sense. All of them require grace. For the fan community, there is an opportunity to model that grace. Support the work. Resist the urge to assign blame to the woman who showed up to do a job. Avoid posting invasive theories about families who never signed up for your feed. If you must post, lead with compassion. If you must guess, guess softly. Most importantly, remember that your faves are not characters in your show. They are people who owe you their best performances, not their innermost lives. Before we close, a note about why stories like this stick. They're sticky because they touch 2 very human hopes at once, the hope that love can find its way back after a stumble, and the hope that our heroes behave the way our hearts would. When those hopes collide with ordinary, complicated adulthood, it feels like a betrayal. But it isn't. It's life. Life that sometimes lines up like a movie, and sometimes refuses to hit its marks. I want to hear your thoughts, kindly and constructively. Do you think public notes help when rumors are loud, or do they add fuel? Should campaigns pause when personal headlines spike, or is that an impossible standard for working actors? And what's the healthiest way for fans to show support when they don't have the full story? Drop your comments below. I read as many as I can. If you value careful, people-first coverage, please like this video, subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets, and tap the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. If you want to help us keep the focus on context and care, consider becoming a channel member by clicking join. Your support lets us take the extra time to research responsibly and tell these stories without sensationalism. Thank you for watching. Be well, be kind, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.